Sophie, because this is kind of the last of last year's pieces that still has yet to come in for the Indiana Fever. And it's the last piece where people are like, okay, the Fever need to go and get her. Like, they need to go and get her. Like, I don't think anyone wants to see Natasha Howard back. I'm going to be honest. Like, it's at the stage where I think a lot of fans would rather see Alyssa Smith back.
Sophie Cunningham is the last major piece from last season's Indiana Fever roster still unsigned, and the silence is getting louder. Fans are refreshing social media hourly, waiting for the announcement everyone assumes is coming. But here's what's actually happening behind the scenes, and it's not what you think. This isn't about money. The Fever can afford Sophie for this year. The problem is something far more complicated, and it reveals how Indiana is thinking about their championship window in ways that might surprise you.
The Sophie Cunningham issue is not money. The Fever have enough money to pay Sophie Cunningham this year. The problem is that the Indiana Fever are not, for lack of a better way of describing it, they don't want to eat a poison pill contract. What they don't want to do is sign a long-term deal, which they feel is an overpay. And with Sophie, she wants a long-term deal. She's made that very, very clear. So I think the Indiana Fever can afford her for this year. And the problem is that what they don't want to do.
That's the core issue right there. Sophie wants long-term security, multi-year deal that guarantees her future in Indiana. The Fever are hesitant to commit beyond this season. And when you dig into why, it exposes the entire strategy this front office is building around Clark and Aliyah Boston. Information is leaking from every WNBA team right now, and what we're hearing about Sophie's situation tells us everything about how the Fever view their timeline.
Is be in a situation where a year from now, if Caitlin demands the early extension and Aliyah demands the early extension, and if Caitlin demands the early extension and wins MVP and her early extension is a Supermax extension, where you have to potentially move off Caitlin Clark. Like, there's a world where, I don't know, I don't think Caitlin's going to do it. But there's a world where you might have to move off Caitlin Clark. And I don't think the Fever want to risk that being a world, as well as that.
A poison pill contract. That's what Indiana is trying to avoid. Think about the math here. If Sophie wants $600,000 per year for 3 years, and she probably wants more based on what Jewel Lloyd and Arco Gunbowale got, the Fever might counter with $900,000 for 1 year. Pay her more now. Avoid the long-term commitment, because a year from now, if Caitlin Clark demands an early extension after winning MVP, that Supermax contract could force impossible decisions. And the Fever absolutely cannot risk being in a position where they have to choose between keeping Caitlin or honoring a deal they gave Sophie this offseason.
The Liberty are probably going to be better than us this year. They're probably going to be better than us, so we're not too worried. We're not too worried about this season. When the Liberty end up, the wheels fall off when John Quell gets older, when Stewie gets older. That's our window to win the title. And Sabrina's pushing 30 at this stage. So we can go for it, we can fully go for it then.
This is where it gets strategic. Indiana isn't panicking about competing with the Liberty this season. They're looking at the calendar differently than most teams. When Breanna Stewart hits 30, when Jonquel Jones ages out of her prime, when the Liberty's championship window closes, mine is when the Fever want to be peaking. Not right now. They're playing the long game while Sophie wants immediate commitment. The tension between those two timelines is what's creating this standoff.
If they give Aliyah Boston the max extension this year, they save money. They do. Like, anyone who wants to say, they're going to spend, it's going to cost them a lot. But it's going to cost them a lot short term. But if the Indiana Fever feel like, okay, we can put a better roster together by keeping her on a rookie deal, it's going to cost them more. It's going to be a bigger salary cap hit the next couple of years. And I don't feel like you can ask Aliyah Boston to take a pay cut if you didn't give her the max extension.
Aliyah Boston's extension is the other factor nobody's talking about enough. If the Fever don't give her the max extension this year, they save money short term but create a bigger problem down the road. She'll cost more on the salary cap in future years, and you can't ask someone to take a hometown discount after you already made them wait. Aliyah is getting every cent of the max when her extension comes. She's not giving the team a $100,000 pay cut like some veterans might. That's another financial commitment Indiana has to plan around when they're deciding what to offer Sophie.
I think the Aces are putting together a team. I think the Aces have waited till the very end to sign Age. I think this is the last year for Jackie Young, by the way. I think this is the last year they fully run it back with that three. And with what they paid Jewel Lloyd, what they're paying Chelsea Gray, I think Aja Wilson's contract comes down to whether or not they are able to sign Gabby Williams, who's looking like she might go to the Aces. And if they sign Gabby Williams, I could see Aja playing for a mil. If they don't sign Gabby Williams, I could see Aja taking the full Supermax.
Watch what's happening in Las Vegas right now. Aja Wilson hasn't signed yet either, and it's for similar reasons. The Aces are waiting to see if they can land Gabby Williams before finalizing Aja's deal. If they get Gabby, Aja might play for less to keep the championship core together. If they don't, she's taking the full Supermax. That's how teams are operating under this CBA. Every signing affects every other signing. Indiana is doing the same calculation with Sophie Thex. They need to see how the rest of the roster fills out before they know what they can offer her.
So I think Sophie's going to get paid, but it's going to be a 1 year deal. So I think, let's just say hypothetically, Sophie wants $600K a year for 3 years. I think she might want more based on what some of the contracts are. Like based on the Jess Shepard contract. Like even the Erica Wheeler contract, I think she'd want more. But let's just say she gets $600K a year for 3 years. And the Fever might pay her $900K for a year, if they can afford it, to keep Sophie for this year. Because the Fever seem to be very, very hesitant to give out poison pill contracts. That being said, if we see Mo Billings and Ty Harrison, they're signed for 3 years, $800K each, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing, Indiana? I do feel like, in general, the Fever seems to be doing an okay job of not having those type of contracts.
Here's the comparison that makes Indiana's strategy make sense. Remember NBA free agency in the summer of 2016? The salary cap spiked, and teams went absolutely insane handing out contracts. Timofey Mozgov got 4 years and $64 million. Joakim Noah got 4 years and $72 million. Ian Mahinma, Bismack Biyombo, Alan Crabb, all massively overpaid. The only team that used that cap space correctly was Golden State signing Kevin Durant. Everyone else created poison pill contracts that handicapped them for years. That's exactly what this WNBA free agency period looks like. The cap went up, and teams are panicking, overpaying for players who aren't worth the money long term. Indiana watched Dallas give questionable deals. They watched other teams mortgage their future, and they decided they'd rather lose Sophie to another team than overpay her and regret it when Caitlin and Aliyah need extensions. That's disciplined front office management, even if it's frustrating for fans who just want the team back together.
Like, in 2016 free agency, I'm pretty sure Kevin Durant was the only good, was genuinely the only good free agent signing. And anyone else that was good was an overpay. Like, we were looking at max contracts with Evan Turner and shit. Like, or near max with Evan Turner, just like you're seeing right now. That is my prediction in general, that we see Sophie on a short-term deal. And it's the reason why the Indiana Fever didn't lock up Kelsey Mitchell long-term. Because locking up Kelsey Mitchell long-term ruins your flexibility long-term. I've heard Lexi Hull's only on $550K a year.
Kelsey Mitchell's situation proves this is the strategy. She wanted a long-term deal at $1.4 million per year. That's what she was reportedly asking for. Indiana said no and gave her a 1-year Supermax instead. She's the highest paid player in the league this season, but she has zero security beyond this year. The Fever chose flexibility over long-term commitment, and honestly, most people around the league think Kelsey is gone after this season. She got her money, but she didn't get what she actually wanted, which was years of guaranteed security.
Like, I heard she's on a really team-friendly deal. But, like, locking in Kelsey Mitchell at $1.4 million a year, long-term, which is, I think, what she wanted, is a really tough ask. And it makes it really difficult, to build long-term around that. But I think Kelsey Mitchell's going to be gone at the end of this year. Like,
Lexi Hull reportedly signed for $550,000 per year. That's a team-friendly deal, and it's the kind of contract Indiana wants to hand out. Reasonable money keeps flexibility, doesn't create problems down the road. Compare that to what Sophie is probably asking for, likely more than $600,000 annually based on recent contracts around the league, and you see why the Fever are hesitating. They don't want another long-term deal on the books that limits what they can do when their actual championship window opens.
She's on the Supermax, and I don't think she's pissed with the Supermax. Like, you can't be pissed being the highest paid player in the league. But I do think she wanted a long-term deal. That being said, like, I think in general, they're going to go and run it back this year and then see what happens next year. I don't know if Sophie Cunningham will be on, or if Sophie Cunningham or Kelsey Mitchell will be on the team next year. But yeah, I'd be shocked if, or the year after, but I'd be shocked if Sophie's not on the team next.
So here's what I think happens. Sophie signs a short-term deal, probably 1 year, maybe 2 at most. She gets paid well for this season, more than she'd make on a long-term deal annually. Indiana keeps their flexibility for when Caitlin and Aliyah need extensions. And then next offseason, everyone reassesses. Maybe Sophie proves she's worth a long-term commitment. Maybe the Fever's championship window opens earlier than expected. Maybe Kelsey leaves and that money goes to Sophie instead. But right now, in this moment, Indiana is choosing financial discipline over fan satisfaction. They're choosing flexibility over certainty. They're playing chess while other teams are playing checkers, even if it means dealing with angry fans who just want their favorite three-point shooter back in a Fever uniform. This is the new WNBA. This is what happens when the salary cap creates real consequences for bad decisions. And Indiana is determined not to be the team that looks back in 3 years and realizes they mortgaged Caitlin Clark's prime because they panicked and overpaid role players in 2025. Whether that's the right call or not, we'll find out soon enough.